Welcome to today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. I'm your host and self-sovereignty mentor, identity alchemist, Lucian St. James, guiding you through principles of self-liberation, manifestation from a non-dual perspective. You have to be entitled in order to get what you want because you realize that it's already you. And one of the things I see in my one-on-one sessions is that we're conditioned to feel afraid. I don't want to be seen as arrogant, or I don't want to be seen as cocky. I don't want them to think a certain thing of me, or I don't want to make anybody else uncomfortable when you choose to fully express yourself. And again, this is not about you projecting your idea of you onto anybody else. It has nothing to do really with an external reality at all. It's what you claim as the state of your I am. Who do you say that you are? If you are someone who's trying to, for instance, manifest a relationship, but you don't first have the idea that, of course, I'm worthy of love, of course, I am passionate, and I am erotic, and I am nurturing, and I am attuned, and I have so much to offer somebody else because these are the things that I offer myself. I am love embodied and incarnate, because the premise here always being is that we are individualized expressions of God, and that your identity is the art of that expression, who you say that you are. And who you say that you are then informing your state of consistent agreement with yourself. You have to be in consistent agreement with that identity because you already have an identity and you're already manifesting. How many times am I going to say? I'm going to say it every single video that nobody needs to teach you to manifest. However, what we are talking about is tuning your attention to the validity, the reality of a specific experience, but that specific experience then starts with the inside. So you have to be entitled. You have to know that you deserve it. And I'm not talking about general worthiness, because I'm educated in a lot of different psychological methodologies. And I'm not talking about standard worthiness in terms of you are enough. It's that, as an expression of God, you're everything. So we're not talking about like you are enough. Like that's still a limit. That's still like a cap on the perception of what can be. And based on that perception of what can be, well, then I'm enough based on. So we're not talking about enough. I'm not talking about worthiness. I'm talking about the fact that you are an expression of all of it. What you're experiencing now is just a localized experience of that based on what you've assigned to yourself. So you have to be entitled. I'm not talking about telling anybody else who you are or what you deserve, but can you tell yourself that? Because if you're waiting on love out there and you're waiting for somebody else to tell you that, you're passionate and you're romantic and, that you're sexy and that you're charming and that you're charismatic and that you get everything you want, and of course they want to be in love with you. Like if you're imagining that needing to happen on the outside, well, then what you're saying is that I don't believe it on the inside. I need the external to reflect which is how we're taught. I need the external to tell me who I am. And if you let the external tell you what you are, then you're saying that I allow the story to write itself for me, and then I co-sign the ledger of debt, of scarcity, of longing, of desire unfulfilled, of pain. And we don't want to sign that ledger. So, most of us are afraid to be confident or to decide that now this is what I declare for myself and this is the case, and you don't need evidence for it. Like that's the other thing is that, okay, well, you hear, well, I'll believe it when I see it, and we apply that to ourselves. Well, I'll believe I'm confident once I have the fill in the blank. I'll believe I'm deserving once I have the fill in the blank. And it doesn't work that way, because if you don't believe that you're worthy and deserving of it now, if you don't already see yourself to be that version of yourself, if you don't decide that for yourself with absolute conviction, and conviction not even being like this thing that I have to cultivate, it's just knowing, like just deciding and not negotiating with that decision is how I would say it. Then you're going to continue to see things that look like that negotiation. So dismiss that worldly, or I don't want to say worldly, that, Western assumption that we have, that I don't want people to think I'm too cocky. You're never going to get the evidence before the self-understanding. The evidence is going to be a reflection of your self-understanding. So you give it to yourself. You should be entitled. You deserve everything. Again, this is not about what the world owes you. You are an expression of the world from a localized, individualized standpoint. So you tune your selector as to what you want to experience. And you have to be willing to experience that from within, understanding that the external will reflect it, but the external, the experience of the external does not dictate the experience of the internal. That's what's key here. A quick little story. So where I live, it's an old, like one of those old like brick buildings, like one of those old mansions that they like chopped up into pieces. And there's only like 4 units there, and I have the top one. And they assign parking spaces based on the size of who's expected to live there. Now it's just me there. I'm just one person, but I have 3 parking spots. So like every day I just slide in. I'll park horizontal, backwards. It just makes the kid in me happy. Like I don't have to. They all the parking spots have my name on them. And it's in the middle of like what would be considered, I live rural, so like what would be considered downtown, but there's not a gate or anything. So I mean, it is, it's segmented off, obviously, or the spots have your name on them, but they're not. I guess technically anybody can enter. I'll usually take up like all 3 spaces or all 2 spaces because I just enjoy it. And there's a person that his car I've never seen there. Again, this is, it's like there's 4 units, we all know each other. And this very strange beat up truck that I had, this story has a point about entitlement. Beat up truck that like essentially like hemmed me in this morning. I had to like slide around it. I don't know where they're from, why they chose to. Again, everybody's spots have names on them, so I don't really understand what the situation is. My point being is that I'm not taking up any space that's not already mine to take up. And what will happen is in the world, in the 3D, at least because I was like, what might this be a reflection of? Because it was very strange and it was very aggressive. There was somebody in my spot with my name hemming me into where I was, as a very loud message as to, who do you think you are parking this way? And that's what I'm saying. Like the world will try to police you. That's my point. I am in my own space, doing my own thing, fine, looking a little bit wild, but it pissed somebody else off. And again, I'm seeing a reflection because there's nobody else. There's no somebody else. So what I was seeing, I was like, what might this be reflecting? It's definitely an old script. It's not a new script, and the old script will play out. And I was like, this is an old script of a limited self, a limited version of me that felt as though, because that's why I do it, that if I take up too much space, then it's going to make somebody else anxious. Because I do have a history growing up the way I did of people pleasing. And that was actually kind of my first stint as being a mindset coach, because I learned from a business coach that you should coach the individuals that have the problem that you first overcame for yourself. So like years ago, I used to do people pleasing coaching, and I got out of that because it was too niched down. But I had this fear, right? That like if I express myself, if I'm visible, if I'm loving myself, and if I'm loud about it. And again, I'm not talking about telling other people. I'm saying it's loud in my vibration. It's going to make other people uncomfortable. So I was always shrinking myself and scanning the environment, trying to tune everybody else's emotional thermostats and making sure everybody was calm and everybody else was okay. I would never take up 3 parking spots, because what if the neighbor has guests, and because they only have 1 parking spot, I want them, like I would have that type of concern. So like this is a random person from, kind of like really like kind of a random spawn in my 3D reality that, was that challenge there, was that old script saying, how dare you take up the space that's given to you? What about me? What about me? And the what about me being this like random person that like doesn't even live there and has no like attachment, to the residence itself. Feeling offended. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're loud about who you are, if you walk around with that sense of entitlement that you deserve good things, you might get pushback either from, well, I would say the world, but the world is just your old script saying that, why are you allowed to just expect good things? Why do you just declare that reality is a certain way? You have no evidence. You're not credentialed enough. You're not old enough. You don't know enough. It doesn't really matter what it is. Or you've had one bad relationship after the next. What makes you think that love is just going to find you simply because, I mean, these can be voices in our head. I'm saying they can be external voices, reflections of that old script, on the outside. And that can shake our sense of that entitlement that I'm talking about. Again, this is not entitlement towards somebody else. This is entitlement that you have as an individualized expression of the all that is, that damn right you deserve everything you want and more, because desire is fulfillment. So we're not talking about longing. We're talking about being. We're talking about the fact that because you declare it, it is so. And from a state of being that person that has those things and receiving it now, not talking about what the outside is going to give me. We're not talking about getting love. We're talking about being love so romantically, erotically, and passionately that love can't stay away from you. Of course, you will see it on the outside because that's what you declare for yourself. We're not talking about, I'm going to earn their approval. We're talking about loving and approving of yourself, again, in such a vibrationally grandiose way that, of course, and everything being, of course, that's what my reality reflects, but not my reality reflects, therefore. Oh, I got dumped, therefore, or the opportunity didn't work out. Therefore, we're not looking at, this is the 3D, is the mirror, it's the land of the illusion. And that doesn't make it less real in terms of how we engage with it. It just means that it's not the total and full truth. So be entitled, declare it, decide it, live in it, meaning that we're not negotiating with it. Just decide that that's the case. You don't need any techniques. You are the technique. You're an expression of technique. And you just decide that, this is the space that I take up in the world because this is the space that I choose to tune my attention to. I'm parking in all 3 spots, parking 5 spots if I want to. I'll buy 10 cars and park in 20 spots just because I can. And you will probably get some pushback from that old script saying, no, remember, you should be small. You need evidence. You need proof. You need effort. You need techniques. And that's just limitation speaking. You don't have to listen. You can. You probably have been, but you don't have to. Signing off of today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. My name is Lucian St. James. I appreciate you for co-creating this moment with me. Until next time.